Here are the 5 most brutal punishments of the Middle Ages, ranked from still recognizable corpse to your own grandma wouldn't recognize you. Top 5. If you think being locked in a dark room is scary, now imagine you're not alone in there. There's a whole bunch of hungry rats waiting. Welcome to the rat dungeon. According to old tales from medieval London, there was once a prison so deep underground, not even sunlight could reach it. And here's the twist. The dungeon was connected to a nearby river. Whenever the tide rose, the rising waters would flush the rats living along the riverbank, straight into the jail cell. At first, it's just a faint rustling sound. Then the scurrying gets louder, until suddenly a horde of starving rats bursts into the room. The prisoner, meanwhile, is tied up tight. They can't move, can't fight back, can't shoo the rats away. All they can do is lie still and become a human buffet. They might hold out for a few hours, but fatigue always kicks in. They eventually doze off, and when they wake up, they feel strangely lighter. That's because a few chunks of their body are now missing. Depending on the prisoner's crimes, they might be left in the dungeon for days. The more unforgivable ones, weeks. Over time, this punishment evolved into something even crueler, where prisoners were simply left there until they stopped breathing altogether. Top 4. If you think doing yoga is painful, wait till you hear about the medieval stretching rack, a device that makes you longer, but not in the way you'd want. The prisoner's wrists and ankles were tied to opposite ends of the frame. Then the torturer would begin to crank the handles. With every turn, the ropes would tighten, and your limbs would stretch farther and farther. 1 full turn, shoulders and knees dislocated. 2 turns, hips, elbows popped clean out. 3 turns, you're basically human spaghetti. And if you still hadn't confessed what they wanted to hear, they'd just keep cranking until you were stretched right out of existence. Just ask Anaskew. She was tortured on the rack for hours, every joint in her body ripped apart. She was left completely paralyzed but still wasn't spared. After the rack, she was burned alive at the stake. And her crime? Reading a few Bible verses and sharing them with a group of women. So who ratted her out in the end? Her own husband. Top 3. From this punishment onward, there's a good chance your loved ones won't even find your body. This one's called death by elephant stomp, used across multiple countries throughout history, but most recently in 19th century India. One of the most horrifying uses of this punishment came from the 4th emperor of the Mughal Empire in India. He would ride an elephant and have it stomp criminals to death simply because he was bored, and TikTok didn't exist back then. A homeless man forgot to pay tax? Stomp. An orphan stole an apple from the market? Stomp. An old lady walking too slow? Stomp. But a nobleman who accidentally ordered a massacre of innocent civilians? Oh, that was just an oopsie. There were a few performance styles of this punishment, but they all had one thing in common. A rider on the elephant's back, carefully guiding its every move. Because this wasn't just punishment, it was a power show. Like saying, look, I can command a massive elephant. Aren't I awesome? There were 3 main methods of execution. Method 1, the quick pop. The prisoner's hands were tied behind their back, head placed on a stone block. The elephant would raise its foot and pop, just like squashing a grape. Method 2, the try again. The prisoner lay flat on the ground. The elephant was directed to walk across their body. If you were lucky, you died instantly. If not, maybe a broken arm, a cracked rib, and the elephant had to reverse and try and over and over and over. Method 3, the grand finale. The elephant would start slow, crushing arms, then legs, then piercing flesh with its tusks, before finally delivering the fatal stomp right on the chest or skull. To the audience, this was a blood-soaked horror show. But to the 4th Mughal emperor, just another fun little Saturday matinee. Top 2, impaled alive. Most recently used in 17th century Egypt, this punishment was reserved for crimes like highway robbery, grave looting, or daring to think about rebelling. It started with the criminal being tied up, arms bound behind the back, and laid face down on the ground. Then came the cut, right below the body. To prevent the victim from dying too quickly from blood loss, a special paste was applied to the wound to immediately stop the bleeding. Now came the main event, a long wooden stake, about twice the thickness of a human arm, sharpened to a deadly point and generously lubricated. Then, slowly, very slowly, the stake was hammered into the victim's body, a little deeper with each tap. The goal? To make the pointy end emerge from the shoulder, the head, or sometimes even the mouth. And it didn't stop there. Once impaled, the body would be put on public display along the main roads, like some grotesque Halloween decoration. The impaled corpse would hang in the air for an entire day, and only be removed once it started to rot and stink. But But for some unlucky souls, there was a premium version of this punishment. In that version, the stake was inserted just shallow enough to keep the victim upright, but not deep enough to kill them right away. To make things even worse, a small wooden seat was attached to the stake, not to help them, but to stop them from sliding down and dying quickly. They were placed in a crowded area, forced to endure hours of agony, begging strangers for help, while passers-by did what people do best, stare or walk away. Eventually, the victim would die slowly, from blood loss, exhaustion, or sheer despair, while the world simply looked on. Top 1. The most horrifying punishment, using live rats to torture humans. This nightmare of a punishment first appeared in 1568 during the 80 Years' War under the command of a Dutch leader named Diederik Sonoy. The method? Simple, but utterly barbaric. First, a live rat is placed inside a ceramic bowl. Then the bowl is inverted, pressed firmly against the victim's stomach, chest, face, or even their private parts. Next, the base of the bowl is heated up, using fire torches or burning coals. As the heat builds, the rat panics, sensing the rising temperature beneath its feet, and desperately tries to escape. The rat starts clawing, biting, digging, trying to chew a tunnel into the flesh. The victim, left to endure the agony of being torn open alive from the inside. The worst part, the rat usually survives. The victim, almost never. And if you think this method is already the peak of depravity, hold on, because there's a more twisted version. Between 1976 and 1983, under the regime of Augusto Pinochet in Chile, a darker method was devised. This time, instead of placing a bowl, they used a tube that was inserted into the back door of the prisoner. Then, a live rat. Trapped, panicking, and desperate, the rat began to burrow deeper into the victim's body, trying to find a way out. And all the while, officials would continue their interrogation, demanding answers, as if the pain wasn't enough. So next time you feel like life is suffering, just be thankful you weren't born in that era.